Palladium Papist Ash Wednesday edition.
Yeah, I went to church and got my head dirty.
Mm-hmm. Of course, by the time people listen to this, it won't be Ash Wednesday, but hey, it's Lent.
You'll have made it through the first Friday of Lent.
Mm-hmm.
Also the first week
And the first Sunday of Lent.
Yes.
That as
And
well.
probably the first Monday of Lent.
More than likely.
And quite possibly all of Lent if you're coming at this after the fact, or during Lent if you're listening to this a year from now.
Congratulations.
For discovering us and deciding to listen.
Also, why?
Why are any of you still around?
Why are you here besides...
Why is anyone here? Why am I not just talking to myself in a room?
Well,
We aren't talking to ourselves.
we're talking to each other
Right.
in a room, but...
You won't leave me, right? Right?
Right?
So Riley, you're coming up to, or well, you're going to be traveling up to the Twin Cities. What's the story on that?
I'm going to be visiting the Propadutic house at St. Paul's Seminary, where
Ooh.
I will be next year. So
Very cool. Very cool. Should be exciting.
yeah, experience a day in the life.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, see what it's all about.
So let's see what I suppose you'll find out more, but in a nutshell, what's that going to look like for you once you hit your Propadutic year? I don't remember, we might have talked about this before, but
I don't think we have. So
not in the podcast anyway. I think I've gotten a brief explanation before, but
So it's kind of like it's been compared to the novitiate of the diocesan priesthood.
Sure.
gotcha.
So it's kind of like establishing routines of prayer and things for a guy who might be fresh out of high school. That's what this is intended for.
Sure.
It's like what the pro before padutic instruction. So it's, it's in the name, but it's also kind of like a substitute for a pastoral year when you don't really need so much formation in going out there and doing things as you do in sort of more human and spiritual formation is what it's focused on. So that's something that I have identified that I'd like to work on, and I feel like 6 years is just too short. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Get you a little bit warmed up before you head out into the
right. Especially
ordinariate.
heading into theology. Like,
Yeah.
that's a big step. So
Sure.
like to be sure that I'm ready for that.
Very
Absolutely. That's pretty neat. And of course, did you guys do the ashes bright and early this morning, or?
And we had 11:30 mass like we always do.
Oh, so normal time.
Mhm.
Sure.
No time.
I was able to go to work. Nathan, you went.
I went on campus. There were 3 today. One was at noon, but I had a class at noon, so it's like I couldn't get the early one. So I did the one at 5:15.
Yeah. So yeah, Ash, it's good stuff.
We're in it now, boys.
The inescapable
Gotta go
Ashes
fast.
song. Once
Oh,
more,
we escaped the ashes song.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
A friend of mine sent me a comment somebody had made in some group on Facebook about just going line by line through the lyrics of the song, pointing out how it doesn't make any sense. I was like, you know what? I don't disagree, but man, this guy needs to chill out a little bit. He just needs to chill out. Our Fat Tuesday was rather pleasant. I mean, pretty modest, but Bryant made a roast in my because the my Instant Pot also has a slow cooker function, so
Roast chicken.
we had that roast going for like 10 hours and
Which probably was a good thing because it's been in our freezer for altogether too long.
for like
so
2 years or something.
Getting
But
it nice and well cooked and tender all the way
it came
through was
out
good.
very tender and
was
very
nice.
tasty. So kudos to
Had a
Bryant.
couple people over and stuff.
Yeah.
Shout outs to our
Are
roommate.
you guys celebrating Meat Island Thursday this year?
Oh yeah.
Eh.
Well, I mean, we got leftover chili and stuff from
we
Sunday.
got stuff we need to clean up before Friday, and then.
Which Bryant told us we could eat that, by the way.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
makes sense.
Needs to be eaten. But yeah, I celebrate that Meat Island Thursday. And then, of course, Friday being Fridays of Lent and whatnot, but getting back into the let's see, the first of 6, if I'm not
That's
mistaken,
right.
if you include Good Friday, which, yeah. Well, there's some technicalities around like when Lent ends during Holy Week, but whatever.
It ends at the start of the Triduum.
And
When the 40 days, not counting Sundays, run out.
mm-hmm.
Yes. And that is at the start of the Triduum.
There you go.
Indeed. So yes, wonderful season in the life of the church.
So is the Triduum a unique season from Lent and also a unique season from Easter?
Yes.
Neat.
It's its own thing.
Yeah, which makes sense.
It's kind of a big enough deal to warrant that.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It certainly is.
Being sort of the liturgical, I suppose, the summit of the liturgical
Like the whole
year.
point.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the nitty gritty of the faith right here. This whole commemoration we have. This is
Without any of the dirt band.
yes. Wait, what? Oh, right. Although the apostles did go fishing in the dark after the resurrection, so
Lying on the docks and counting stars.
I think it was slightly less.
Peter
romantically
jumped in the
inclined.
river to cool himself from the heat of the night when they weren't catching anything. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's see.
I interrupted you.
We
I
also
apologize.
have
but
an interesting Mardi Gras tradition at St. Meinrad.
oh,
So we have what's called the Mardi Gras King. It's
All right.
Alright.
The king of just Mardi Gras. That's all they do. There's no responsibilities to it. There's no leadership. You're just the school chooses someone to be king, and I don't even know how they do it.
It just
It's
happens.
like there's no voting process. There's no.
It
they're just chosen.
happens.
It just happens.
They go into a room and then the white smoke comes out and you know they've chosen the Mardi Gras king.
No, they just the king's emeritus process in at the beginning and give a speech, and then crown the new king, and the new king has to give a speech.
Lovely.
One of the priests told me today that I was his pick for king because he thought I would give a good speech,
Sure.
but then realized that I wouldn't be here next year, so that wouldn't be a workable thing.
Yeah, it wouldn't work because you couldn't pass it on.
So your
And I
eligibility's up.
100% would have just jumped into Albuquerque. So
And there would have been nothing anybody could do about it.
You'd have gone on for the full 10 minutes.
What have we done?
What have we unleashed upon this world?
That would have been. How could you imagine though? That would have been epic. A story for the ages. The story of Albuquerque. Getting some audibly quizzical looks from Riley.
no, I'm just tired.
Yeah,
It's a fast day.
Understandable.
fasting. Yeah, I'm
I'm not supposed to mention. I'm not supposed to wear a gloomy face.
No,
I
exactly.
let my left hand know what my right is
anoint
doing.
Your,
or anything,
anoint your
but
head with oil. And
I'm
stuff.
audibly explaining,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
which I shouldn't be doing. So shame on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Shame.
We're not shouting from the street corner. Nobody's going to hear us. It's fine.
No.
This doesn't count as shouting from the street corner.
Speaking of nobody hearing us, we're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
Are you sure? I'm Nathan.
And I'm Riley.
I guess
It's an awfully short banter.
that
bit.
is
I'm
a
sure
very
we've got-
short banter.
I'm
bit.
sure we've got more random stuff to throw out there.
Okay. Well, we'll
Just keep going for a bit.
Just
We'll
keep going
yeah,
for a bit.
why not?
riffing on it. Keep
It's not
vibing.
like-
I just didn't want to. I
Content's gonna take
didn't
that long.
want to let that segue go to waste. That little self dig.
Digging at yourself is fun.
Mm,
Do you like tags?
let's see.
My couple guys watched the movie Snatch last night.
Wait, what is that one
It's
about?
it's about a British boxing bookie, and
Mm.
he's just a situation where he's trying to buy a trailer for him to run his operation out of because his old one is deteriorating, and the tremendous mess that ensues as part of that.
I see.
But there's
Is there a heist?
Brad
at any
Pitt
point?
is this like gypsy boxer, and they're buying this trailer from the gypsies, and there's just like so many different fun accents in this movie.
Oh, sure.
Did
It's
Brad
just
Pitt
like this
pull off an accent?
incomprehensible Irish Welsh thing. Yeah, Brad Pitt's done this kind of Irish British thing. He's just like talking like that. Yeah, do you like dags?
Speaking
See,
of
I wouldn't have pegged him as
movies,
like a good accent guy, but that's interesting.
we've got the Batman that comes out this weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I am moderately curious to go see that one. I'm not like excited because it's like this is the fourth time you've rebooted Batman. Stop it.
If you don't
And
count
if
the
you
Lego
don't
series.
count like the recasts in the '90s, which you kind of don't because it's the same art.
Or the Lego movies.
And there's Lego movies, right?
And the various animated.
But it's like I'm not impressed with it yet. I feel like, I mean, this one's trying to be the dark Batman, which Batman's already dark. You don't need to try harder.
Yeah.
Try hard.
They're just making Batman look like a psycho.
Which, that's a direction to go maybe, but I don't know if I like
I
that.
don't think it is the direction to
I
go.
don't think it is.
I think making Batman a detective again is the direction to go.
We haven't seen proper detective work from Batman in
No,
many of
not
the
at all.
movies.
Nothing,
And with the-
nothing even vaguely approaching it.
And with the villain like the Riddler, that is the perfect opportunity to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love if they end up doing that. I'm just not confident that Sparkle Boy can pull it off.
I suppose the closest we've come
Sparkle
is
Boy
like,
can totally pull it off.
He
It's just
can.
the direction
It's just
and the writing in
everything
this so
around
far
him.
is just like, I'm an edgelord.
It's trying too hard, is what it is. Like,
Yes, it is.
I enjoy a story with like dark elements and dark undertones, but when you try too hard to prove to me that no, I'm serious, I'm dark, look at me, I put on eyeshadow. It's like, dude, go back to Tumblr in 2008, okay?
Yep. Exactly. I don't know. I've sort of read some vague initial reviews where like it seems like the story revolves around how actually it's the Waynes that are the problem. Or something along those lines. I don't know.
yes, this seemed blame the rich people.
Yeah. So
And maybe
Getting murdered in an alleyway was my fault.
And maybe later in like the series there was some hints of what the Waynes were doing with Wayne Enterprises and like the whole New 52 Court of Owls stuff that I hear is actually really good. I just haven't experienced it.
they're making a game sort of like a spiritual successor to the Arkham games.
Oh yeah,
That's-
with the Court of Owls in it.
Yeah.
Which that's a
Are they
recent
very fond of owls?
Sorry, that's just a secret society name I can't take seriously. We're the Court of Owls. Ooh. We shall rule Gotham from the shadows with our 360-degree, well, appear to be
Neck rotation.
really actually 180 very quickly. Next. Shame.
I've heard that's actually one of the better story arcs to come out of like the New 52 stuff after
Sure.
the Flashpoint reboot that rebooted everything.
So the DC universe is basically like an old computer at this point.
Kind of, but at least it's not as messy as Marvel.
Sure.
Because Marvel's got stuff going all over the place.
And they don't
whereas
really bother to
DC, they
reset
have
it.
specific events where they're like, okay, this is the point where we revert everything. We kind of rewrite it. This is where we retcon things. Everything gets a retcon. We bought new guys and new characters. Let's fold them in somehow. And so they've done that like, what, 2 distinct times? I think. There was the Crisis on Infinite Earths. That was like the first time it happened.
And
And
then
there was Flashpoint. I think Flashpoint was what led to the New 52. Or maybe it was a different thing.
Sure.
And I don't think Flashpoint was like initially intended to. It's just like, hey, wait, you're telling a story about Flash going back in time and trying to change something and changing the timeline. Can we just apply that to everybody because things have gotten a little out of hand?
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. And that's another one of the things I didn't like about the Flash show very much was
Sure.
like, okay, you can't make every season about him going back to the night his mother was murdered and trying to change it because you've done that like 3 times where he's like, he does it or he stops himself from doing it and then he does it anyway and he stops himself from doing it anyway, or something along those lines. It's like just you have to stop.
Shut up my phone.
You have to stop. Somebody
Where
call
you
Franchise
been?
Protective Services.
Time to stop.
Oh well, yeah. I'm
Speaking of time to stop, it's probably time to stop this bit.
There we go. Now you can
my
introduce
final
us.
thought on Batman before having seen it, or the Batman, whatever. It's like I don't have high expectations for it,
Me either.
but I'm not like I don't want to like dunk on it unnecessarily without having seen it. So we'll see.
I don't think we need to reintroduce ourselves.
No. We're pretty
No,
well.
now we can
it's
actually
it's a common
transition.
thing. Other podcasts do the thing where they'll do the introduction bit and then continue the banter. So that's a perfectly normal thing. It's
Yeah.
not our custom, but it's a perfectly viable option.
It's valid in this instance.
Well, I
So,
guess now we can just shift over to our main.
Well, speaking about
event.
comic books,
Yes, we're doing Super Serial on a comic book series.
One day, 3 lads from North Dakota were bitten by a radioactive television, and with their powers combined, they are Super Serial!
And of course,
yes, this gets a little fuzzy but it's not a novel, so this is sort of uncharted territory.
it's the serialized content
it's
that
not,
we're getting
it's
serious
not Uncharted.
about.
I think it's
so-
pretty clear. It's pretty serial.
True. Okay.
So the
a
comic we're
serial
talking
medium.
about in question is the Megaman comics by Archie that ran from 2011 to 2015
Not
for
that
55 issues. What Archie?
The other comic Archie.
It is that company that does that comic, Archie.
Oh,
That's where they got their name from.
never mind.
So yeah, it's that Archie. But in this case, it's
Japanese Archie.
no, it's American Archie. They just have acquired the license to do a Japanese property.
Gotcha.
I mean, I love the Mega Man games, but I couldn't cover them in a gregarious games because the games are just kind of surface level,
Yep.
and you'd have to dive into the.
You have to fight Man to get his power to fight the next man.
Which is what happens in the comic book, but they add depth to it that was previously only in some of the manuals and just kind of inferred. So it's and it's actually like really solid as like as a story, the way it's told. Anyway, so this takes place in the vaguely middle distant future of 2000 and X. The X being a variable that could be just about anything. It doesn't matter. Where robots are kind of a normal thing in human society. They've helped, they're the modern era. They're just the mechanized workers we have doing all the stuff. And one of the leading geniuses behind this robot revolution is one Dr. Thomas Light. And he has recently revealed and has introduced a new line of robots called the Robot Masters. They are they possess near human intelligence. It's not quite human intelligence, but it's like within
Pretty
operating
close.
limits. But it's pretty close. Close enough to be an allegory, So he's got like 8 of them. 6 of them are like industrial workers. You got like one for cutting down trees and one for building bridges or whatever. 2 of them, named Rock and Roll, are his housekeepers / lab assistants. They are kind of a brother-sister duo and also kind of his son and daughter, kind of. So anyway, that's all cool and dandy, but then a former colleague of Dr. Light, one Dr. Albert Wiley, he is not too pleased with the fame and notoriety of his former colleague when his genius is just as good as Dr. Light's, right? So what he does is he takes the 6 other robot masters out in the world, reprograms them for evil, and starts, terrorizing the city. This is not good because you've got the police can't really handle them because they're super strong robots meant for industrial purposes. And so having a strong sense of justice, his Rock is like, hey, I've got this ability that you gave me where I can like copy the tools in your lab to help you out with building things. What if we just upgrade that into like copying their weapons and then like battle-ify me so I can stop them? And Dr. Light's like, are you sure you want to do that? I don't want to like send my son out there into jeopardy. He's like, no, let's do this. This is the only way it works. And it's like, okay, thus Mega Man is created. So the first arc is that kind of introduction. Megaman fights the first 6 robot masters, uses their powers against them to stop Dr. Wiwey, and he's on the run now. There's kind of a middle arc where they do a couple of other little issues before they jump into the Mega Man 2 arc, in which Dr. Wiwey kind of comes back with 8 more robots that he built himself, and he's like, well, I'm straight up challenging you. This is me trying to take revenge on you, stopping me for taking revenge on you.
Escalation.
I'm escalating the stakes. I've made these guys specifically to counter you. One of the major players is Quick Man. He's kind of like billed as his main antagonist.
Real speedy boy.
Real speedy boy. And actually, there's also kind of a backup plan here where this isn't part of the game, but it's something they introduced for the comic because there was nothing going on in the game. Where as he absorbs more and more of their powers, he's kind of downloading malware into his system. So by the time he's beaten them all and gotten to Dr. Wily's castle, he's kind of fully reprogrammed. But then the rest of the first 6 robots from Mega Man 1, who were good but were programmed to be evil, but then they were programmed to be good again, they help out and help him stop Dr. Wiwey, and Dr. Wiwey retreats one more time. And the place he retreats to is like in Brazil. He goes to Brazil because there's this mysterious no-fly zone after this pyramid erupted from the earth, like a couple weeks ago, and the researchers
there.
right. So he goes into this like UN protected quarantine area that nobody's gone into because it's dangerous, and finds an ancient alien supercomputer inside of the pyramid because like you do.
Just hanging out.
Yes, and also who's kind of just and this alien supercomputer helps him rebuild his previous 8 from Mega Man 2 and builds 8 more robots and stuff. And it's also at this point that he comes across a broken down, weary, almost dead robot called Blues, whom he upgrades and is like, oh, hey, I'm going to fix you up because I know who you are. And then I'm going to turn you into Breakman. I'm going to give you a helmet and a shield and all this and a scarf and stuff. You'll be super cool and you'll work for me and you can help me take revenge on Dr. Light. And he's like, I guess I don't mind taking revenge on my father, because turns out Blues, as we learn in like the next couple issues of Flashback, Blues was the prototype for the Robot Master line. Back when Dr. Light and Dr. Wiwey were working together they were like on a government project budget or whatever. And so they're just like making military drone type of things. But Dr. Light couldn't help himself and had to insert his pet project into it. Yep. And so this one soldier they're building, he puts his prototype like free will-ish in there. Which turns out he was kind of it wasn't a good fit. He kind of didn't perform well in the tests and stuff. And also kind of sustained damage where it's like, oh, now your core's unstable. We're going to have to fix you. And
I will try. Anyway.
But the thing is, Blues is also like, he wasn't really built with a purpose like some of the other ones. He's just like, I'm here to experiment. You're existing.
I just want to hit some minor chords. Play my harmonica.
He does like write a little whistly tune, which is actually...
of course.
Which is something from the game. There's like this whistle theme you'll hear as he teleports in. It's this whole thing. Anyway, but he's kind of a little angsty teen rebellious right now. And he overhears and misunderstands something that Dr. Light's telling to one of his colleagues where it's like, you know what? It'd be easier if I could just reprogram this rebellious streak out of him. But, I won't because I want to give him freedom and stuff, but he walked out before that second part.
Second part.
He's like, well,
classic.
My core's going to give out. I'm going to die. I'm just going to live the rest of my days on my own terms.
So basically Chappie.
Basically Chappie, yeah. which is what I was thinking of when we were watching Chappie, honestly.
Interesting.
So anyway, but before his core completely gives out and he dies, Dr. Wiwey fixes him and he's like, okay, now you can go fight Megaman. So after like a couple of other like filler arc things that happen, I'll touch on what happens there, but it's not important to the main story. like there's some celebration for Mega Man because he's a hero, right? He's getting the key to the city and stuff. And then Proto Man shows up. It's like, hey, I'm here to fight Mega Man, and so they have a fight. They fight on, and then also some of the other Robot Masters get involved and stuff, and it's this big fight. A fight that's interrupted by a random crossover with Sonic, and it's actually really fun.
What?
Yeah, there's a Sonic comic crossover.
Okay.
It doesn't add anything to the story. It's more fun than anything.
I'm gonna make you eat those words.
But it plops them back out in the middle of this battle, and they continue fighting because
Just like, all right.
it was a random aside, but it was fun. And they don't. And it's like they retcon it. They don't even remember what happened during the Sonic crossover. It was purely for fun. So, anyway, so during this fight, during the scuffle, Dr. Light sees what's going on up there. He's like, oh crap, that's actually Blues. Hey, Roll, better go tell Mega Man to not kill him because I don't want him to kill my first son. And so Roll goes up there. He's like, hey, Mega Man, don't shoot him. And then she gets shot, and everyone gets freaked out by that, including Proto Man. So he retreats. But it's at that moment that the supercomputer in the pyramid is like, okay, now's the time to set off a giant EMP and blow up all the technology in the world.
They all must die.
So yeah, all the technology in the world shuts down, and the world basically shuts down, and now that's not good. The only robots who are functioning are Dr. Wiwey's robots because they were made by the Thing. So that's a predicament. Because now you've got a badly damaged Roll and a Mega Man who's out of commission. But while the blackout's happening and while there's chaos ensuing because the world runs on technology and robots right now,
Yep.
Proto Man shows up with a method to EMP-proof Mega Man.
How was he himself? Must have been EMP proof or something.
Yeah, because he was modified by Dr. Wiwey. So he's like, hey, if you want to stop this, use this on Rock. And Dr. Light's, hey, son, you wanna stick around? He's like, no, I've got to go because I don't like you. So he goes away. So they fix
Things
Mega
haven't
Man.
changed between us.
He goes down to Brazil and fights all the robots in Brazil.
Like you do.
Like you do.
All those Brazilian
All
robots doing their
all 8 of the
jujitsu.
Mega Man 2 guys and all 8 of the upcoming Mega Man 3 guys that happen. While Dr. Light and some of the scientist friends are trying to patch things up and make some support robots for Mega Man. He fights his way to the interior of the pyramid, and Dr. Wiwey is being basically held hostage by this robot supercomputer called Moon at this point. It's actually like kind of mind controlled him and tapped into his brains to steal some of his like designs and stuff, so it could continue fueling its war machine basically. So he's down there trying to hide and trying to build a secret robot to help him fight. When Mega Man shows up, it's like, okay, I'm gonna help. I'm gonna try and fight the supercomputer. And Dr. Wiwey's like, hey, here's a robot that can help, which immediately gets taken over by Moon, and it's like, that's not cool. I'll help you, but I can help you, Mega Man. Let's stop this evil alien robot from space.
Working with Dr. Wiwey, I thought I'd never live to see the day.
Because I've been nice this whole time. I swear, it's been this guy that's been manipulating my brain this entire time. So they take down the evil alien supercomputer from outer space, and Dr. Wiwey's kid is arrested and taken to the
robot jail
to pay for his crimes and stuff. But during the trial and during the follow-up investigation, it's like, yeah, there's actually evidence of Dr. Wiwey being his brain being modified by this space computer, which is a weird thing to think about because we haven't experienced alien computers in this timeline yet. Anyway, so there is evidence that he might actually be telling the truth about being innocent for all of his robot attacks. And so they're like, okay, we'll put you on house arrest, and you guys, and since you can vouch,
put you on house arrest.
And since you
all in the house.
Bro, it's my house.
I got the keys to that place.
So anyway, he's under house arrest, living with Dr. Light as his kind of supervisor, caregiver. And so now everybody thinks he's cool, And honestly, he's actually given a legitimate chance for redemption where Dr. Light's like, hey, you and me used to be friends, right? And we could still be friends. Let's give us a second chance. I'm working on a secret gigantic robot project to help against future problems. Like,
What could go wrong?
what could possibly go wrong if I include you? Because I want to be your friend again. I want us to be friends again. And Dr. Wiwey's like, sure, I can do that. He secretly, I'm plotting against you. So at the unveiling of this giant robot Gamma, 8 more. What do you know? 8 more robots show up and start wreaking havoc and stuff. And Megaman's got to go fight him in space, and then he's got to fight also Proto Man, who shows up occasionally to fight him.
So
And turns out Wily was behind it the whole time.
it was Wily all along.
It always is. That's like the plot of every game.
Docta
which is
Wiwey.
unfortunately repetitive, but
Yeah.
and there's. So yeah, they do the fighting and stuff, and Dr. Wiwey is brought to justice. No, he isn't brought to justice this time. During the collapse of his base, he's assumed dead.
Oh, right.
His whole castle crumbles on top of him, and he's presumed dead.
freaking body.
Which shakes Mega Man up. It's like, oh, I tried to not be a killer robot, but he ended up dying. And so for the rest of the series, there's like another Sonic crossover, a preview for the Mega Man X stuff they wanted to do.
Okay.
Archie was also doing Sonic at the time.
True. That's still kind of funny though.
It was
like completely unrelated.
And then like the end of the comic is kind of set up for future things that never happened, because we're getting into the last like issues. Because it went on hiatus in 2015 and hasn't come back, and is likely never.
It went to the 7-Eleven to buy cigarettes.
Pretty much. But no, during the last couple issues, you got Dr. Wily isn't actually dead, and he's been taken in by a evil millionaire who wants people to hate robots, so he wants Wily to continue trying to take over the world, so he funds him. You've also got Proto Man, who was ordered to kidnap an innocent young girl named Kalinka Cossack to force the hand of Dr. Cossack to listen to Dr. Wily and build his own robot to try and fight Mega Man. That's the plot of Mega Man 4 they're setting up for.
Interesting.
Which Proto Man is very distraught over. He's like, I'll get to Proto Man in a bit more depth, I suppose.
Yeah.
But also just kind of like, Dr. Wily's still out there. The rest of the games are going to happen. And that's where the comic ends, but pretty much.
So the comic basically serves to like sort of fill in between the lines of the games, right?
Yeah.
More or less.
It's the events of the first 3 games, but with also like some filler stuff. And I suppose this is starting to get into the cool stuff, less summary.
Yeah.
Because I think it does a really great job. The original games have like in their manuals the description of the story.
Uh-huh.
And so there is kind of an implied depth to it that just can't be explored on the NES. Not in the platformer, anyway.
Right, with the tools they had at the time.
But you've got... I think it does a really good job fleshing it out, and even, like, bringing in inspiration from, like, other... Not just the main games, but other, like, side content. Because, like, the whole Raw Moon thing, that's the plot of a Japanese-exclusive first-person arcade shooter.
Okay.
That was only on the, like, Sega Dreamcast and PS1, and nobody liked it, but it... bridged the gap between 2 and 3 somehow in the comic, and it actually added some interesting stuff. One of my favorite... Well, I can start talking about individual characters now, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because that's where the depth comes from, is exploring the characters, not so much what happens.
Yeah.
Because you got Mega Man, who is... Rock is this, just this lab assistant kid, right? Mm-hmm. But he... sees what's going on. He sees the evil happening. He's like, I am the only person that can fix this. And being a robot who was built to help fix Dr. Light's problems, I can do that. I volunteer. But through the entire story, he's kind of burdened with I am nearly killing my brothers, right? These robots are part of his line. They're his brothers. Most of them don't actually die. He can actually salvage their main cores and memory chips so that they can be rebuilt.
Yeah.
And so like the first 6 from Mega Man 1 are recurring characters who just kind of hang out. But then there's
Why
like
does
the other
Dr.
ones.
Wiwey keep
Eve-
building robots that are like weaknesses of each other to fight together?
Probably as a backup plan in case they go rogue on him.
Fair enough.
But there's an interesting thing toward the end of the series where, like they rebuild a lot of Dr. Wiwey robots, and it's like, hey, we like cut through a lot of red tape to try and save you and get you back online, but you have to re-enter human society with an actual function that isn't trying to kill Megaman. And some of them were like really open to this, like, oh, really? I get to actually serve a purpose.
Put me right back to work,
something?
sir.
But then there's some other ones who are like, well, I was built to kill you. My entire purpose of existing is to fight you. And if I'm deprived of that, am I actually going to be me? If you reprogram me to be something that isn't, Quick Man trying to be faster than Mega Man, then what am I? And so they get willingly put offline because it's part of their condition of, staying online.
Their terms of service.
Right. There was another really interesting moment where after they defeat Ramun, right, and they're going back to investigate the temple he was in, they're not sure how safe it is, right? They're creeping through, and they go into Ramun's chamber and realize with relief that, yeah, he's still dead. And Mega Man's like, wait a minute. I feel relieved. I feel happy about the fact that I killed something that might have been a living sentient thing. I don't know how to feel about that. I feel awful for feeling good about it. And Dr. Light's like, that's complex. And probably more complex than you were programmed to handle. But the fact that you feel this conflicted is probably a good sign that you're not actually a killer robot. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. The sweet horrors beyond my comprehension.
So I think that's like the core thing about Mega Man's characters is his like drive to do what's right, even if it's not always clear.
Mm-hmm.
But then like there's the supporting characters who get there's also Mega Man's sister Roll, who doesn't like have much of an active role in the main stories. But she's a pretty great like supporting role in the comics. She is in a lot of ways his equal and opposite. And in fact, there's like a couple of issues where she kind of proves that
the rock and roll moniker.
Absolutely. That's one of the funny things. You got rock and roll, you've got blues, you've got other characters like
smooth jazz.
You like jazz?
Electropunk.
There isn't a robot named Jazz,
Post-hardcore.
unfortunately. Not outside of
Reggae bot.
There's Dr. Wiwey has a bird named Reggae. There's also like other musical characters. There is Punk is a character from the games. Tango is a cat robot from some of the games.
Hip and hop, is that a thing?
No, unfortunately. He gets a pet bird named Beat. And there's another character original to the comic named Tempo, and she's actually really cool.
Nice.
I'll get to her in a bit. But for Roll, she's just a really solid supporting character for Mega Man. She's constantly like her job is to sit in the lab and worry a lot of the time.
Oh, goodness.
But also she's got a very active role in some issues, like when like later in the Mega Man 3 arc when Dr. Wiwey's still at the lab, she's extremely suspicious of him and is kind of the first person to figure out that he's doing evil stuff.
She's not going to roll with it, you might say.
Exactly. And there's actually a really neat comic in the middle where while Mega Man is out for repairs or whatever, she's just having a day off with some of her friends. And then there's like this shipwreck that happens off the shore, and she's like, "Oh, well, time to step into gear and help organize the rescue." And so that was a kind of a cool thing that she did, kind of proving that
Fly the helicopter.
and off
A
to
robot
the
is falling into the river.
Hey. But no, okay. But then you also have the character of Dr. Light, where he's very much
Quite rotund, actually.
yeah. And fortunately, he doesn't speak in a lisp like he does in the Mega Man 8.
Docta Wiwey.
Docta Wiwey. He's significantly better written than he is in those dumb cutscenes in Mega Man 8.
Yeah.
But no, he's he's got the best of intentions with all of his robotics things. He may have not done the smartest things by making sentient robots.
You know what they say about the road to hell.
But like but he's like the eternal optimist. He wants to believe that Dr. Wiwey can change and can be good. He wants to believe that his robots can be used for good. And he's got this very fatherly role for Megaman, like in this allegory, he's almost like the god to Megaman's Adam.
Sure. Or Geppetto.
Or yeah, in that vein also. So he's like a force for good in this story.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the name being Dr. Light.
Right.
Light versus the Doctor.
In Japan, it's right anyway.
Oh.
Because they share the same letter or whatever. Anyway. But I think, like, by far, my favorite character in this is Proto Man. He's kind of the most interesting. But before I talked about him, I'm going to talk about Tempo, who I alluded to earlier. She is a character created original for the comic. Her creator, Dr. Lalind, was an old friend of Dr. Light. But sometime prior to the events of meeting her in the comic, she was involved in, like, an accident. She's like an excavating drill robot, right,
Sure.
for mining. But she was caught in a cave-in and very nearly destroyed. And so Dr. Lalind, when repairing her, is like, do I restore the personality function or do I not, so I stop being attached to this thing I've created? I'll not. And so she's kind of a very blank robot when you first meet her. And it's like, wait a minute. Did you delete her personality because you thought it would hurt you less?
Bought her entire personality and then deleted it.
And so after like a bit in the comic where she's like, maybe that wasn't good because I kind of deleted her air quotes personhood allegorically, you know. Her personality is being brought back online, and so she's not sure how to feel or how to think or how to do. But eventually she kind of grows in trust of her creator and her fellow robot siblings, cousins, kind of, I guess. I don't know. But she's most interesting in how she ties to Proto Man, who's kind of like the first fallen child of Dr. Light, right?
Sure.
Where he doesn't know what his purpose is. At first he thinks his purpose is to be Dr. Light's son. Mm-hmm. But after he comes back and realizes, oh, no, he's got Megaman in role now. He has children. Then what am I? Mm-hmm.
She don't love you no more.
And so, and actually looking at how the reason he left and how lonely he was as his like only existence, it's clear that Dr. Light was trying to remedy that by creating rock and roll as a duo, right? So that they could support each other. Whereas Blues felt alone and isolated. But perhaps if he came home, he could have a brother and sister that could, support him. But he saw them as his replacements rather than his complements.
As any oldest child would.
Exactly. So there's a couple interactions that he has with Tempo that are some of the highlights of the book, actually.
Yeah, we're killing spiders together.
So, because he shows up and he's like, I heard about what happened to you, and how are you okay with that? She replaced everything that was you. She messed with who you are, and I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about you. This is not me projecting onto you how that you should hate her and want to destroy her and want to destroy everything she stands for. It's like, dude,
bruh,
it's your dad. Go home. He loves you. And it's like, no, he can't love me. I don't love him. He can't love me because there is no me anymore. My function's replaced by somebody else. And she's like, bruh, just do it. It's like, no. And then, like, at the end of the comic, after Dr. Wiwey has told him to do one too many things he's not comfortable with and can't agree with, he's like,
dang it,
I'm gonna earn this. I'm gonna go home eventually, maybe someday, but for right now, I'm just the failed prototype. I'm gonna be Proto Man. I'm gonna do my thing. I'm gonna prove to myself that I'm a good robot, that I can go home, which is if you play Mega Man 4, what eventually happens, because he saves Kalinka and outs Doctor Wiwey as the evil mastermind behind the whole conflict when it was previously
Unknown.
thought to be somebody else.
Sure.
So I think Proto Man is really the most interesting and well explored character.
Sure.
Another thing that I think is just in general cool about the comic is how in tune it is with the series and its fans. I think it would have been super easy to adapt it so loosely that nobody could recognize it and just call her good.
Mm-hmm.
Or adapt it so strictly that nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
But there's it knows what fans want out of it.
Sure.
To the point where it even subtly, tastefully references in-jokes and memes among Mega Man fans, or content created by Mega Man fans. It's really fun. And the art is, well, we'll get into that anyway later.
Yeah.
So that's more or less the comic in a shell nut.
All right.
I don't know. What are your thoughts? I've talked a lot. I want to drink of water.
The majority of my exposure to Mega Man has been these sorts of discussions and the
Watching me play the games.
that and Brian Daly Gilbert's rating of all of the different characters.
Oh yeah, he explained all the robots, and it's
Yeah, that's a great video.
that was very fun.
So yeah, it's cool that they're able to draw that kind of depth out of a seemingly sort of surface level platforming video game. They're able to fill in the blanks.
In general, that's one of the classic series' strongest suits. It's that complexity out of simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
Where it is a straightforward enough all ages action comic.
Yep.
But there are these moments of depth of thought and emotion where it's and that actually also carries over into the games, where it's complexity out of simplicity.
Yep.
You only have a jump button and a shoot button, but they're hard as all get out. But they're not unfairly hard, because it's the basic actions are so simple. It's just figuring out what to do in the level.
Yep.
So it's
puts the onus on your coordination with those tools
Right.
you're given.
This isn't about the games, but it's I think in general, the simplicity and accessibility of the basics of Mega Man
Sure.
make it very appealing. But they actually can manage to draw some moderate depth from it. Of course, there are other spin-off series and stuff that try harder for deeper stories,
Yeah.
but to varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
The X series is kind of the edgier brother of the classic series, but doesn't succeed nearly as well as being consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And have I ever shown you the Mega Man 4 cutscene, What Am I Fighting For, where Zero screams and it's poorly dubbed and it's fantastic.
I don't think I have seen that actually.
I showed you the Mega Man 8 stuff, but not the X4 stuff.
Yeah, well, I'll have to watch that after the pod.
So yeah.
I guess, what are your impressions, Riley?
Yeah, I've always kind of enjoyed things that are willing to ask the question, what makes a person by proxy of, is a robot capable of being a person? And I think in this case, their argument is these are basically representative of actual humans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not trying to explore that question so much, but it's kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of assuming that
It's more. It's looking at the human condition through the lens of robots, where instead of our nature and our relationship with God, it's their programming and their relationship with their creator, essentially.
is sort of a microcosm of that dynamic, I suppose.
Yeah. Which
And
is
like you said earlier, kind of a parable,
Yeah.
almost.
Which is kind of what robot stories have done for a long time, honestly.
Yeah, that's sort of their classic.
ever since
place in science fiction.
Pinocchio and
Pinocchio.
Frankenstein, right?
Yep.
Which are arguably the earliest robot stories.
I'd watch that movie, Pinocchio and Frankenstein. It's like Godzilla versus Kong, but Anyway. But yeah, no, that's sort of been the classic place of, yeah, like you said, the sort of the robot story.
Again, you mentioned we watched Chappie recently.
Yes, we'll probably have to do an episode on
We could.
Chappie.
I mean, it's essentially the same plot with scientist wants to work on artificial intelligence, other scientist doesn't, and they're both working for the government, and so one creates Proto Man with a limited lifespan. Except there's more gangs from South Africa
And more first-person filming.
Yeah,
Yep. But another topic for another time.
indeed.
So especially like you said with like the dynamic between Proto Man and Dr. Light is probably the most in-depth exploration. There's sort of a prodigal son element to it.
Absolutely, all over that.
So that's kind of
Where the father is willing to take him in anytime he comes back, but the son is just like, I'm the one.
I need to earn that spot back in my father's love.
You don't have to earn it. He loves you. He built a brother and sister for you, so when you come back, you could have
Be a
a
big
family.
happy family. Any other observations, cool things we'd like to talk about in the Megaman comics?
Not
When did these run?
from like 2011 to 2015.
Okay, so they're fairly recent.
I think part of the reason they
So a while after the games originally came out.
quite a while.
Okay.
One of the other cool things I liked about it that we never actually got to see the fruits of is they did a lot of clever setting up for later stuff that would happen. Like, one of the robots from Mega Man 3, Shadow Man, he's like this ninja throwing star guy. He in the manuals was apparently supposed to be a robot from space that Dr. Wiwey fixed.
Oh.
And so in the comic, he finds him in the temple in Brazil as like one of the servants of Ra-Moon. And so he rebuilds him and uses him. And he was foreshadowing for the bad guys from Mega Man 5 for Game Boy, which are a series of robots from space named after the various planets, with Sunstar, the ultimate weapon, as their leader. They were setting up for that. And they
I
also
suppose Moon Ra-Moon or whatever the guy's name, like the sun god. Interesting.
So there was some really neat like foreshadowing, like we might try to do this, work this into the story later. They also introduced a couple of characters of the robots from Mega Man 9. Because the plot of Mega Man 9 is some robots were approaching their expiration date.
So Halo 4.
And Dr. Wily's like, hey, if you don't want to get scrapped after you expire, you can work for me. That's the plot of Mega Man 9. And so they introduced some of them now so that when they turn on you, it's not going to feel good.
Gotcha.
I also kind of wish they'd have gone all the way to 10 because with a robot pandemic would hit different in current year.
Yeah.
Which that was 2010 that game, no, 2012-ish that game came out. It was about a robot pandemic that...
But do the Archie comic creators know that we didn't?
Well, that was from the game, though.
Oh.
So that was Capcom.
So did Capcom know that we didn't?
But I think around the time the comic was discontinued, Archie was doing some reshuffling, and there was some politics going on there, I guess. And also, that was when one of the major guys who worked on Mega Man left Capcom to go create his own failed studio and try and kickstart Mighty Number 9, which I have on Wii U. I haven't played yet. But
he did a Don Bluth with Capcom.
Except for the being successful part.
Well, I mean, Don Bluth only lasted so long. Anyway.
He had a couple of successful things. So yeah, that's probably the reason the comic didn't continue.
Sure.
But they had some cool potential stuff to talk about later in the future.
So, like, it theoretically could be picked up where it left off?
It theoretically could, but it won't.
Unlikely.
Because the players aren't at the table.
Yeah.
And Mega Man 4 would have had a really cool story because it's about, a father trying to save his daughter from Dr. Wiwey by taking over the world.
Goodness.
Right? And also, the robots he built are basically her brothers. You actually meet Dr. Cossack in Kalinka earlier in the series. He's Russian, obviously.
Yeah.
You could tell by the name. And of course, and you also meet a couple of his robots, so they're friends with Megaman at this point. So it would have been cool to see them have to fight and reconcile that. But that's a timeline we never got.
The one that theoretically exists, it just never, the story never was told.
Indeed.
Anything else to add?
Those are most of the cool stuff and the story beats I wanted to talk about. There's other stuff that happens and I could talk about, but I won't. Time.
Alrighty then. Well, let's get into some transcendental analysis. What do we have for truth in the Mega Man series? I mean, we sort of touched on the prodigal son aspect of the...
Absolutely. That's one of the major themes, the Proto-Man. Proto-Man tries to find meaning in so many places where it's like he works for Dr. Wiwey. He falls into the temptation of evil
Ultimately
to try and
fails.
find himself when actually his identity is in his relationship with his father and with his family.
Mm-hmm.
It's your
was
relationship
there
with
the whole
the
time.
father that defines you.
Yep. So that's kind of a cool...
A cool parallel we can extrapolate.
Yeah. But, like, obviously they borrowed that whole thing from Christian...
They borrowed that imagery and
Yeah.
storytelling.
The narrative archetype.
And obviously there's the good versus evil standing up to the forces of justice kind of thing.
Yep. Standing up
Standing
to the
up
force.
for the forces of
There we
justice to the forces. My bad. I talked a lot.
It was a low food day for Nathan. Well, for everybody, but...
Stop reminding me.
Sorry, we did just eat, but... It'll be Meat Island Thursday soon, don't worry.
I'll just stay up till midnight. And then
Yeah. There we go.
That's not within the spirit of Ash Wednesday.
Yeah.
No.
Nor is it something you're probably capable of doing.
Staying up till midnight. You're right. I do work tomorrow morning. So
The two great forces at war in Nathan's members is the
Sleep
sleepy
and
versus
food.
hungry.
the never-ending fight.
Who will prevail? Any other truths in the Mega Man comics?
It's simple truths.
Yeah.
Just like illustrated in a really kind of fun way.
Sure. Yeah, that's,
You know-
I'd agree with that.
And you can't save everybody. Dr. Wily's kind of hell-bent on his goals. And
As the name would imply.
right. Funny thing is, they're named after Albert Einstein and Thomas Edison. Thomas
Really?
Light and Albert Wiley.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And of course, Albert Einstein being one of the guys that helped build the nuclear bomb, him being the villain in a Japanese video game makes sense.
Oh, yeah. That would do it.
That would do it. So I assume that would mean we're moving on to goodness.
Yes. Yep.
So obviously you've got, I think for goodness in this story, you've got Dr. Light and his like fatherly characteristics, his almost naive forgiveness
Yeah.
and openness to forgiveness. But also just Mega Man's got a good family relationship. Roll is such a fun supporting character that just is always there for her brother, but not to the detriment of her own character. It's like she can do her own things if she wanted to, and she actually does some really cool stuff. But it's like this: if Mega Man didn't have a family unit supporting him, he wouldn't be able
He'd
to
be
be
kind
Mega
of a
Man.
mess. In some ways.
Yeah.
He's not totally self-sufficient. He's in need of aid from those who care about him.
So that's like the good, primarily. Aside from just Mega Man generally being a
And
force for
redemption
justice.
arcs and so forth.
Yeah. Well, an incomplete one because Proto Man still has stuff that he hasn't done because the comic stopped, but he's
True.
well on his way to figuring it out.
Yeah.
And then that theme of family also continues with Tempo's side plot, and which it's kind of neat that they managed to. Sometimes, like if you add an original character to an established story, it'll feel out of place and won't work, right? But this one, they actually make some of the new characters work into the themes.
Sure.
There's a whole bad guy group I didn't touch on because they're not really important. They're like anti-robot terrorists,
Ah.
and so they're There's a couple of episodes with them in it. But it's like they managed to work them into the world and the plot in a way that feels natural and not forced.
Sure.
Sometimes even using scrapped character designs from the games. Which is like, oh, that's fun trivia.
That's there. You look at that
Anyway,
neat little detail in there.
In terms of goodness, I think it's the supportive family element.
Gotcha. Beauty. What is beautiful about the Mega Man comics?
Well, they are... I looked up who did the art earlier, but the art in them is really fun. It's really...
Because the Mega Man games, it's very colorful.
It's angular.
Yeah.
Right. The original games do have this old anime, almost Astro Boy art style.
Mm-hmm.
The comics, are... they reference that in their designs, but they also kind of, Western comic bookitize it.
Yep.
But not to a degree where it's unrecognizable. And it's this really great in-between. You got these nice, crisp, thick outlines and these bright colors and these obviously fun designs that were made to stand out, being only 8 pixels by 8 pixels wide.
Right, yep.
So they're iconic, eye-catching designs. And the art's really good in these books. There's some pretty good stuff. And the writing by Ian Flynn is on point. This guy has actually...
It's probably deeper than anybody expected it to be.
Right.
With Mega Man.
And interestingly, he was also one of the writers who took over the Sonic series during that time. So he kind of cut his teeth on that and learned how to adapt the video game pretty well into a comic book form.
Interesting. Hence the Sonic crossovers, I suppose.
Hence the Sonic crossover. And those are just plain fun. Watching Dr. Wily and Dr. Eggman have an evil bromance is the coolest. Oh my God. It's so funny. And then they take all the Sonic characters and turn them into evil Mega Man robots. And so he gets powers based on Knuckles and Tails and stuff. That's just fun.
Yeah.
They allow themselves to have some good, clean fun with that.
Interesting. It seems a little out of left field, but since they're the same comic company.
But also they're similar enough. They're
true.
Platforming mascots. A blue hero fights a red frenemy and an overly edgy guy who's all dark and red.
Robot minions to get
fights robot minions to fight a evil scientist in a death machine with a really impressive mustache. Sonic is just furry Mega Man.
Moving on.
That is our episode title right there.
Sonic, but less furry.
Hey, bro, what's a furry?
I suppose
Unity. What brings it all together?
I think the thing that brings it all together is really the character of Mega Man. He's like the good timeline version of Proto Man. He's like everything Proto Man could have been.
He's Proto Man the White.
Indeed. But it's also he's kind of the thesis statement for everything Dr. Light stands for and everything Dr. Wily stands to corrupt. Right?
Gotcha. And the primary he's sort of at the primary conflict point, I suppose, of those two ideas.
In fact, he stays that conflict point for hundreds of thousands of years because Mega Man X happens, which is just like the second version of Mega Man Dr. Light builds. Mm-hmm. Then there's just stuff that happens after because of that, and it's a whole messed up timeline that eventually ends in all of humans dying because Mega Man Legends happened.
Goodness. So it gets off the rails pretty quick.
Well, pretty quick. That's like 3,000 years in the future.
Right, but yeah.
But yeah. So yeah.
Neat. Anything else?
That's about what I had to talk about. This comic is kind of underrated. It doesn't get enough attention.
Well, there we go.
You can't really buy it aside from PDFs on Amazon, I suppose, anymore because of... Well, I've been hunting down comic shops. I haven't read every issue. I have read most of them because I've been collecting them slowly for my younger brother Simon, and so that's primarily where I've been reading them.
Sure.
But yeah, they're good stuff.
Anything to add, Riley?
Nope.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Leave a rating to let us know what you think of the show. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Pallapapists. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladianpapists@gmail.com. And we will catch you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.